Hello, this is Christina Caudill with the Radiant Astrology Podcast. And on this episode, I'll be exploring the lunar eclipse in Pisces on September 7th, 2025. And we'll also just explore in general what we can glean from the eclipses in the signs of the lunar nodes being in Pisces and Virgo, and in general, how we can work with lunar eclipses and what we can tend to expect from them. And with me is my guest, Celeste Brooks from Astrology by Celeste. Welcome, Celeste. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me, Christina. It's a pleasure to talk to you. I love our conversations. You're so brilliant.
Oh, I love chatting with you too, and same to you. And I love that we share this fascination with eclipses because they are always wild cards, right? But after you've been, exploring them for many seasons, eclipse seasons, we have every 6 months, you can start to see some patterns emerge. But it's always amazing to see what the universe has in store for us with these eclipses. So thank you for taking the plunge with me. And before we get started, can you tell our listeners a little bit about you?
Yes, I'm Celeste Brooks of Astrology by Celeste. I'm an astrologer who's certified by OPA, the Organization of Professional Astrology. I'm also a coach. I spent 25 plus years in corporate America in sales, marketing, and business development roles, including leadership. And an intuitive. I get psychic hits. My podcast is called the Celestial Insights Podcast, which helps you navigate the energies of the week like a boss. My main platform is Instagram, but I'm doing more and more on YouTube at Astrology by Celeste. I'm ramping up my game. And I love to talk about mundane astrology, the astrology of worldly events, and how what happens in the cosmos shows up not just in our own lives, but in the collective story. Yes, I do. Yeah, and I teach and classes, I do consultations, events, and that sort of thing.
Yes. And I love that you said that you love to, or that you have been ramping up your game, which made me think of Saturn into Aries. But Saturn has just recently, scooted back into Pisces, which is something I also wanted to discuss for this eclipse season too, because that's going to be kind of a signature. And I think we've all felt the shift from we were in such the watery realm of Pisces, like the first half or so of this year. And then when Saturn and Neptune went into Aries and essentially conjoined in, I believe it was it July? They got really, really close, almost to a conjunction. And now they've both gone retrograde. Saturn is now in Pisces. And I personally am a little relieved because all of the pushing, and going, and it reminded me of something that that great astrologer Rick Levine had once said is like, sprint up a mountain for the entire time, right? Even though it feels like that's the pressure that Saturn and Aries has been giving us. And now we may have a little bit of time. I'm already looking forward to some Pisces sort of rejuvenation so that we can get back to all that ramping up early next year. Um,
Mhm.
so, so Celeste, let's explore a little bit about the lunar eclipse. As I said, these eclipses now this year and next year, actually, they're going for a while, I think through 2027 at least, into Pisces and Virgo, even though the lunar nodes, are only in these signs for about 18 months. I know these eclipses are going to be activating this axis of Virgo and Pisces for quite some time. And in September 7th, we have the lunar eclipse, which is a full moon, right? And it's very tightly conjoined to the lunar nodes. Some of these eclipses may be further from the nodes, and maybe they may not feel as much of that sort of eclipsy intensity, but this is within like 3 degrees. So let me just share my screen here for those of you who are watching us on video so you can get a sense of what we're looking at. We've got the sun at 15 Virgo conjoined the south lunar node at 18 degrees. That's only 3 degrees away. Um, and Mercury, who rules Virgo, is at 10 degrees, right? So we've got the sun sort of in between Mercury and the south node, and then they're opposing the moon in Pisces at 15 degrees, the north node in Pisces at 18 degrees, and Saturn retrograde at 29 degrees Pisces. So that's the main we're working with. Um, and so, yeah, give me your sort of short and sweet thoughts on this to get us started, Celeste.
Well, yes. One thing I think it's really important to talk about is that eclipses work together. So the lunar eclipse, which comes first, is in the sign of Pisces. So what that typically means is that something happens at the lunar eclipse. There's an emotional response, and this one is extremely emotional. People need to be very mindful of letting your mind carry you off into a state of excessive energy, anything, whether it's anger, fear, what have you, moving your body, exercising. I think we should all be dancing at this eclipse, is what I'm going to talk about a little bit more. And then we have a solar eclipse at 29 Virgo 2 weeks after that. So something happening here is going to initiate new starts with the solar eclipse in Virgo. So every month we have a new moon and a full moon. And when there are eclipses, there's like there are new moons and full moons times 10. So the new moon was at 0 degrees of Virgo 2 weeks before this lunar eclipse. And then we have a solar eclipse at 29 degrees of Virgo. So we have two new moons in Virgo, which is unusual. And Virgo is the sign of health. It's like it's systems, it's workers, it's the rank and file of armies, people who work in public health. You can think about that. And we're seeing all of these stories. And the day before the new moon in Virgo, people got to look again at the president's hand of the United States, Donald Trump. And his hand has had all this makeup on. So it started the speculation, a new concern about that president's health. And so people are watching his routines and his rituals. I saw a doctor talking about, when you see him not golfing as much, we'll know he's near the end, or there's some kind of problem. So from 0, the alpha, to 29, the omega, people are watching the president's health. And this is the biggest story of this eclipse season. There are many stories because he's the president of the United States. And on the Friday, August 29th, people started posting on Twitter, that's now X, that Trump is dead. And apparently, he had a kind of crazy cabinet meeting this week with the Japanese, where he was saying some weird stuff. And then he hadn't been seen since. And lots of people are asking, where is he? Where is he? Where is he? And on Friday, the 29th, the moon in Scorpio, which is a sign of death and rebirth, was squaring his Mars in Leo. So some people have been speculating that he's had some kind of surgery or some kind of procedure to help his heart, because it's speculated that he's in
Congestive heart failure, right?
Yeah, his ankles are all swollen, which can be a sign of that. And it looks like he's getting IVs in his hand. But on Saturday, when the moon moved into Sagittarius, and he had been supposed to have been flying somewhere to go play golf, and he didn't leave. Now, on Saturday, someone was seen leaving the White House to go play golf, well, to go to Virginia. And I said, when I saw the picture, who is that? Because it looks like it looks like a body double. I don't think, I could be totally wrong, I didn't have my glasses on, but that's what I thought when I looked at it. So
Mm.
I am thinking as so what happens now is there's a first quarter moon in Sagittarius. And I think Sagittarius rules foreign things. And I think they're going to be leaders all over the world who saw that picture and we're like, something's going on, and are making plans about what they're going to do when he is incapacitated, if that happens. And then on September 1st, Saturn moves from Aries back into Pisces. Pisces, this is like stormy seas, trouble on the waters. And then the next day, Mercury moves into Virgo. What are all the questions? I mean, the president of the United States trying to get the man to close his mouth is a feat that Samson maybe would have trouble doing. Samson from the Bible. Now, if he hasn't said anything and flapping his gums by then, people are going to start demanding accountability. That's Mercury and Virgo. Where is he? Where is he? Where is he? And then Mercury, the first aspect or soon after that, it squares Uranus. Are we getting Uranus and Gemini surprising news about his health? And then we have Uranus stations to go retrograde, grounding the energy, pulling back something so that we can see what's underneath it. And it has, and then we have the lunar eclipse at 15 Pisces, which can also be like all is revealed. Lunar eclipses bring full illumination. And for the United States, it's in the third house, which rules communication, transportation, things like that. And the South Node is in our ninth house, long distance, of foreign affairs. So there could be something happening on the 7th that is like, or right around there, that's big news on seas. And there are places that could be in focus. But I have said this Uranus going retrograde and then the Pisces lunar eclipse has the energetic force of an earthquake. Uranus rules earthquakes, and then a tsunami. Now, I'm not saying there's going to be an earthquake or a tsunami. I'm saying that's the energetic force of what is coming. And it can be
Mhm.
news and it can be other stuff.
Yes, and so just getting back to, the significance of a lunar eclipse versus a solar eclipse. So lunar eclipse tends to deal with the people. The people are represented by the moon. And so they tend to be also very emotional, this emotional outpouring, like you were saying, the emotional overwhelm. And also, there's this. I even read an article, I think in the New York Times or someplace, about this term everyone's using now is called crashing out, and I think that is when we get so anxious and so spinning out in our minds or emotions or whatever. I think it can mean a variety of things, but I would watch for that, the emotional crashing out, spinning out, the paranoia, the conspiracy theory. I mean, these are all going to be rising at this time, I would imagine. And you had said earlier to me about the Saros series, which is the series of eclipse, the family of eclipses that this one belongs to. And do you want to read for me what the interpretation of that is?
Yes, the Saros series, Bernadette Brady, what she has done is she has delineated all of them. And there are these 1,300-year cycles where there'll be an eclipse. That's the birth eclipse that starts at one of the poles, and then they move closer to the equator and blah, blah, blah. But the Saros series, and it's the nature of the eclipse, it's the family. It is 9 new south. And she has said it's worried about loved ones, health, paperwork, or communication. We're talking about the president's health. JFK is threatening to take, well, he's already said there's less access to COVID vaccines, and there could be other announcements coming. I'm calling the solar eclipse. The tagline was last rites, and it's WRITES. So it could be last time people are writing prescriptions for certain things. Paperwork
Wow.
or communication. So during this time, there could be some kind of cyber attack. Just was one in Las Vegas. their DMV and all their things are down. There was something in Minnesota. There was something very recently. So paperwork, visas, there's all these redrawing of maps. That's, I feel,
Redistricting, yeah.
redistricting. Yes. So these are the
Interesting.
themes: health, paperwork, communication, that are especially amplified at
Mhm.
this eclipse season through the whole thing. And I call this lunar eclipse at 15 degrees of Pisces severance packages. So that means, people losing their jobs is quite possible. People surprise layoffs, that Uranus going retrograde. And I think Uranus and Gemini, that's crashing out. People's minds snapping, and they blah, blah, blah. They go ballistic.
Mm.
So yeah,
Yeah, and then also like what you're saying with RFK Jr., he was born on a lunar eclipse, and we were saying earlier that he was born on a lunar eclipse. Donald Trump was born on a lunar eclipse. People born on lunar eclipses during eclipse times, whether or not it's, especially if it's, aspecting your chart, but whether or not it is sort of, tightly or anything, that you still tend to have those really extreme eclipse experiences if you were born on a lunar eclipse, or if you're someone in the public eye who was born on a lunar eclipse. We look to lunar eclipses for major turning points in their lives. And RFK Jr. just recently, and his people, I guess, in the health department, have just had mass layoffs at the CDC. So when we think of the public, which is, again, the moon and a lunar eclipse, the public and public health, these are the health signs, of Pisces, Virgo. And then, as you said, like the Virgo is like the public health workers, the government workers, the people who do the everyday sort of on the ground work, and them having those mass layoffs. And we're not even to the, as you said, the Mercury square Uranus yet, right? I guess we have
no,
that to look forward to.
that's the severance packages. And some people just walked out of the CDC. Some of their leadership. This was the week before the lunar eclipse, or 2 weeks before. They walked out, and people, the rank and file, were clapping for them. They walked out because they're talking about how it's very dangerous what he is doing to our public health system. And one of the things he did this week is he said he can look at children when he's in the airport and see if they have some kind of mitochondrial problem. And then he's saying, don't listen to me about health. He's telling everybody to do their own research about health. There are people in this country that have 3 brain cells, and they're supposed to, this is why we have all these conspiracies about everything under the sun.
Oh,
This
well, the other
he
thing
said,
that's,
don't listen to experts.
oh yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt it.
That's all right. He said, don't listen
The-
to experts. Do your own research. If you have 3 brain cells,
oh,
what are you supposed to?
that's like Make America Healthy Again, the Maha thing. They don't
Yeah,
trust any doctors, anyone with any medical degrees, nothing like that, because they can do their own research on YouTube or on, whatever, or listen to astrologers. I mean, I think there is something to health astrology. However, I appreciate my medical professionals. Thank you very much.
yeah.
Um,
And
but the other thing, oh, go ahead. I'm
I was
sorry,
going
I'll
to
let you
say,
go.
and Russian misinformation. We know Russia, China, other places are flooding our, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok with misinformation, giving people all kinds of nonsensical stuff and about how they should be treating themselves. And people
Mhm.
have died from taking just the homemade therapies.
Mhm. And the other thing is Bernie Sanders, as of like 6 hours ago, from, when I checked the news, has just called for the resignation of RFK Jr. in an op-ed in the New York Times. So that's kind of like a major voice, like calling for his resignation. Now, whether or not that will go anywhere, but it's a major, sounds like a major turning point when these things happen during eclipse seasons, that there's some galvanization, around, like, okay, yeah, well, he has no problem firing everybody else, but is his own position could be on shaky ground too.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah.
Well, and Bernie Sanders, his birthday is September 8th. So his sun in Virgo is being eclipsed at the eclipse. So the moon is opposite his sun, and the sun is, yeah, he's having a birthday.
Yeah, so let me see. We can take a quick look at that chart as well, because we were just talking about it a minute ago. It is really igniting Bernie Sanders' chart as
Mhm.
well, this lunar eclipse, as you said. Oops, wait, hold on. Let me try that again. Um, And so here we have Bernie Sanders, September 8, 1941. We're not quite sure of the time. There was a time floating out there, 12:27 p.m. So, uh, you said we're maybe dealing with some dirty data here, but Brooklyn Heights. But generally, what we do know is his, sun is at 15 degrees Virgo, conjunct the North Node at 22 degrees Virgo, and that is conjunct Neptune at 26 Virgo, right? All opposing the South Node at 22 Pisces. So he's in his inverse nodal return, which can be uncomfortable. These are usually some like uncomfortable lessons or being in an uncomfortable position. And Saturn is heading back to his South Node. He's in his Uranus return too. I mean, because he's what, in his 80s. Um, He's got natal Uranus at 0 Gemini. So that's all this mutable energy again, similar to Trump too, is very
Well, I
mutable.
hope he's taking good care of himself because the South Node is coming to his sun, and the South Node is a drain, it empties out.
Hmm.
So he
And
better
oftentimes,
take.
yeah. And I think that also what we were saying earlier, it was health can be, these can be health signatures too, especially when you have not only Uranus return, but Uranus heading back to your Saturn. He's having a Uranus will essentially come back to his Saturn, and then he'll have Saturn again opposing his Neptune, and that can be difficult for, where Saturn is where you tend to find your footing and your sense of, assuredness. And that may be challenged here, and then maybe in a health, realm at some point over the next several months. Um, but I'm hoping that, at least right now for this, the Uranus giving him the fight to,
He's
because
got the
right now
fight.
he's not laying down
Bernie
for
has got
sure.
the fight in him. He's he hasn't changed his talking points for 30, 40 years. He is a man of the people, for the people, and by the people, with his sun in Virgo. That is the everyday person. Leo is the one. Virgo, he really cares for the people, and he's got this north node right near his sun. So he's born in eclipse season, uh, within a week, I would think, or two of an
That's
eclipse.
right.
Hmm.
Yeah,
He was
because
born right
his
after a lunar
moon.
eclipse, right?
Yeah, it looks like he was born pretty
So
closely
this is
after
a
a lunar
turning point
eclipse.
for him too. Yeah, we said Trump,
Yes.
Kennedy, and Bernie, all born on eclipses. This one may be most
Born on lunar eclipses.
lunar
Yeah.
eclipses, and the lunar eclipse with Trump, it squares his um his sun and his moon, so it's a karmic crossroads.
Yeah, let me just pull that up real quick. It's interesting too, though, because as Trump is the, the commander in chief, basically our king, if you will, for now, he would be represented by the sun. So solar eclipses tend to impact mostly the leaders, right? Whether it's the king or whoever is the leader in position, all kinds of leaders at different levels. But so, as you said, we want to look to this lunar eclipse, which, let's see. is square. He's in his nodal square, and anytime you get the nodes squaring or conjunct or opposing, that's turning points in life, like significant turning points.
And this is
And
in his, the sun is in his first house. People are focused in looking at the sun focuses us on his vitality. The first house is about your vitality.
what's interesting is if this were whole signs, the lunar eclipse would be in his eighth house, of either facing your mortality, which I also like to kind of layer that on it as well as the whole sign. But as we said, looking at, so there's all this question about, and did you hear that JD Vance was like, I don't know where this came. He said, like, oh, if the president were to die, I'm ready and willing to step up to the job. It's like,
On
wait.
the job training. He has less than 5 years government experience, and he's likely
Oh
going
my
to be
goodness.
potentially could be president at some point. Hmm.
Well,
Yes.
let's
Now
look real
Saturn.
quick. Let me look real quick because even though, I wanted to mostly focus on this lunar eclipse, because, oh, wait, what the heck? Sorry, I thought I
We'll
went to the
say
solar eclipse. The solar eclipse, will affect the leader. So we've got, as you said, the next solar eclipse is 29 degrees, Virgo, and it's opposing Saturn. Wow. So
yeah.
a solar eclipse where the light of the sun is eclipsed, opposite this pressure of Saturn, that sort of karmic sort of, kind of, you make your, what is it? You make your bed, or what's the phrase I'm thinking of? But it's just the karmic consequences of Saturn,
Hmm.
are severely pressured, but especially someone in a leadership position as he
Hmm.
is. So that's definitely something we'll want to explore. But what were you saying about Saturn?
So Saturn, as soon as it enters the sign of Pisces again at 29 Pisces, it's making a quincunx, which is a 150-degree aspect to the president's ascendant from his eighth house of death,
Death and mortality and
and
things like that.
mortality. And quincunx
Endings.
are health aspects. So yeah, it's going to really come into view the health problems that he's having, and people are going to potentially be seeing more weakness. And the last quarter moon of what was initiated by the 0 degree Virgo new moon is at 21 degrees of Gemini, which is between Donald Trump's sun and north node. So his chart is very activated at the last quarter moon, where the sun is in Virgo, the moon is in Gemini, in his public 10th house. We're really by that time going to be seeing stuff. And that's the Mars of the United States. So some foreign country,
Attack, maybe.
then yeah, I'm worried about a cyber attack. So I would caution everyone to keep your phones charged. Make sure you have at least a week or so of stuff in case there's reasons why you can't go out. And yeah, I mean, just be prepared. We're in an eclipse season. Pisces can be confusion and chaos, and it's in the third house. So if like the internet had problems or what have you, it's likely not going to be like the whole country is having problems, but there are going to be places that are experiencing power outages and stuff with Uranus going retrograde, quite possibly. And it could be because
Mm.
storms or huge winds that are going on.
I just wanted to look for
And
when Uranus stations retrograde. Oh, so it goes
September 5th.
retrograde on Friday, September 5th. I'll try to get this out before then. Because a Uranus station is always going to be, it's like a Mercury retrograde on steroids, and we're in a lunar eclipse. Like, so we are not normally, people know they watch my channel. I'm not normally like, oh my God, the sky is falling, but it could really feel that way, as we talked about in the beginning, when we feel like we're spinning out and things like that. But I think the good thing that we can always remember is we can always return to center. We can always ground ourselves. We can always get off of social media for a time, if it's too much. Because as much as the Pisces archetype can be that overwhelm and confusion and spinning out, it can also be about getting silence and getting space and retreating, which I think can be a time to really take responsibility for our own, emotional and mental health at this time.
Absolutely. And this is a time where you really need to be going internally. Pisces is also about surrender. Think about the serenity prayer. Know what I can control, what I can't control, and the difference between the two. So, the more that you can find your center as we go through what could be a couple of chaotic weeks where, there could be a regime change, and there's going to be regime changes some places in the world potentially. In ancient Mesopotamia, I believe it was, they would put the king or the emperor would have a substitute come into their place, because from studying the cycles, they knew this was a time where leaders often were overthrown or passed away and things like that. So yeah, I forget exactly what it's called, but the putting in the substitute leader.
Oh, yeah. I'm not sure I
We're
know
using a
the term
taster.
for that.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah, someone to taste all your food in case you get
yeah.
poisoned. And and it just reminds us that eclipses are what created astrology. It was because there was like an emperor, like way back in Asia, and also this was also happening even in other areas of the world, Babylonia and wherever. There would always be like some leader who was responsible for the realm. And then if they would see this blackness happening in the sky, or, like the sun being blacked out or the moon turning blood red, they would just be like, what's happening? I need to know what's happening in my realm, because I'm responsible for it. And they would, that's how astrologers were born. They need to figure out what is happening, when is it going to happen again, because during those times it was seen as, the leader was vulnerable. And so that's
Mhm.
when they knew that they needed extra support. They needed extra, their light shining and having the divine right of kings was dimmed during these times. And so I think that's one of the things that I think astrology connects us to, our great legacy, of astrology, and they're bigger than us, and we can't necessarily control them, and we can't like harness them for our ultimate, growth or whatever. I think there are times where we realize there's some energy that's bigger than us. Respect it, recognize it. If you happen to be elevated during that time, you're elevated. If it's calamitous and it's disastrous, get out of the way, let it move through. I think
Mhm.
that's some of the greatest wisdom that we can glean from these times. And you actually, I have to give you some kudos because you gave a fantastic presentation all about everything you need to know about eclipses in like, what, 30 minutes for the summit. And is it available now on your website to purchase?
Oh, yes, I need to put it up there. Yes, I will put up the eclipse presentation so people can go to my website and purchase it.
All right. So go to astrologybyceleste.com. And is there anything you wanted to say about this eclipse before we wrap up? Because I definitely want to make sure
Okay.
people know about your moon course.
Oh, before we get there, I found it. In ancient Mesopotamia, they put an expendable proxy in the place of the king for the duration of the lunar eclipse because they felt they were dangerous to them. So,
Wow. And isn't that interesting that JD Vance just
raise
he
the hand.
volunteered himself to be the expendable proxy. Or no, or
Yeah.
like you said, there was some double or something like that at the golf course.
Now, there's also this. Can we talk a little longer? Because I have a few more
Of
things.
course.
There's
Yes.
also this Mars in Libra is squaring Jupiter in Cancer at the lunar eclipse. Now, it is it is separating. So something has already happened. I think something happened with Uranus retrograde that is the nature of a diplomatic conflict. Like in Mexico recently, the people on their legislators were fist fighting in the pushing
Hmm.
each other. So
I
there's a
saw
lot of
that.
a lot of emotionally charged anger between spouses is possible. We may hear of a high profile divorce. Also, Cancer energy is tribal. And one of the things we've been seeing is like these culture wars where the far right is trying to, uh, push up white supremacy.
Trad wife? You mean the
Trad
trad wife
wife
thing?
is like, oh, wouldn't you love to just churn your own butter and work all day nursing and carrying on for 15 children? That's the life. They're glamorizing that. Yes.
Oh my
Sydney Sweeney
word.
had this Jean ad where it was like a remake of the
Right,
Brooke
I
Shield
remember.
Calvin ad where she's like this supplicant, like, just look at me, I'm an object, and don't you want to have
Well,
sex with me?
it wasn't just that. She was saying that she has blue eyes and blonde hair from her family, and people were like, "Okay, that's like Nazi, like
Yes.
Aryan race stuff." Like,
Yeah,
come
there's
on,
this
that's not cute.
amplification of that. Well,
I wanted to. Oh, go ahead.
because of that, the Gap has brought back their dance ads, which I loved like 20 years ago. And they have worked with this international girls group called Cat's Eye, and they have this amazing choreographer. And Cancer Energy is nostalgic. And they used the song Milkshake, that was this huge hit back in the day.
Wow.
And Milkshake is there's a double entendre where it's about breasts, and that Sydney Sweeney, that's what she's known for. She's got very large breasts, and then she's a talented actress. But the song lyrics are, "My milkshake brings all the boys to the yard, and they're better than yours." And they're doing this dance, and these gorgeous girls from all over the world, different shades, different colors, different ethnicities. And this dance is so fire. I think as we move through this lunar eclipse, we're going to see more and more people learning this dance, doing it at the nightclub, dancing in the streets. I'm waiting for to see like a sorority in Alabama or somewhere. It's going to prove the culture war. They can't win on culture because you can't fake influence, like Kendrick Lamar said. But you should look it up. The Gap and Cat's Eye, and they're videos that slow it down and show you the choreography, so you can have yourself ready for the dance floor. We're going to do it at UF.
Oh. Oh, really? Okay, great. I have seen the
Saying that
video.
now because
It
I have
looks
time
like
to
so
learn.
much fun.
Sorry, I just get excited and keep going on and
Well,
on.
yes. Well, I did also, I forgot, I wanted to mention too that we've got a water trine here. If we pull in Black Moon Lilith, I just happen to be doing a lot of like exploration with Black Moon Lilith. This is the mean um delineation here at 18 Scorpio at the Pisces lunar eclipse. Trine the Jupiter in Cancer. Also trine the North Node in the Moon in Pisces. So we have a grand water trine and in the middle of a lunar eclipse. And just like you said, and then Mars is squaring Jupiter in that whole thing. And Venus is also like in the mix here too, squaring Black Moon Lilith. And so there's a lot happening. And I think with the water trine, we always get an overwhelm of emotion. I think it can be as much of as we were talking about the anxiety and spinning out, that is very much of a Virgo thing. And Pisces, but also with Jupiter in there forming trines, it can be over the top. Like just when you were just saying about how fun and how joyous this dance thing was, it was bringing all these people together. There can be as much of that as there is, the anxiety piece too. Sometimes when we find that, there's no greater medicine than to laugh and to be with community and to find our joy that way.
Oh, I think this is very joyous eclipse in a lot of ways, even though there's some hard stuff that's going to be happening. And in this Cat's Eye video, they're like they do this thing where they like jump up and down, and it's like an earthquake, and then they get back into their dancing. So I feel like this eclipse has the energy of that that video. Oh, it's so good. You have to Google it. It's
Okay,
one of
I'll be watching that video, and I'm gonna have to take my fish oil so that my knees can actually like I can do my
this is
jumping.
in Leo at the eclipse, and it's really the 10th house. If you set it in, this is a lunar eclipse in Washington, D.C., in the 5th house. Venus in Leo, the joyful dancing that people are going to be doing. Mm-hmm.
Sounds fun to me. All
Mm-hmm.
right. You got
But
anything else, or are you about ready to wrap it up?
yeah, there could be there could be a lot of floods and fire. That's the bummer thing. The fixed
Well,
star
floods I could see. Where are you getting the fire piece from?
from the Neptune and Aries at the IC of the United States. That could
Mm.
be like fire. I don't know if the Grand Canyon's still on fire or not, but there's fires going on in
Oh, it is.
California, in the wine country. And in
Oh.
Washington State, they just arrested, ICE came in and arrested two people who are trying to fight a fire for immigration things. They took firefighters away this week from fighting a fire.
Wow.
So we're having problems with fire.
And we're
Yeah.
having problems with ice.
And we're having
Right.
problems with ice. Yes. Yeah. So just grounding yourself, this is, and witnessing what is happening, I think, is what we can be doing. And trying not to let yourself get taken away by fear, but pay attention to your surroundings, I think, is a good thing to do. And if you feel, I shouldn't be going there or doing that, very much,
Yes.
don't take candy from strangers, don't take drinks from strangers. There's this new drug out there. It's 100 times more deadly or potent than fentanyl, and I just saw something this week about it. So be careful with. I would recommend staying away from drugs from sources. I mean, I don't think
Versus
anybody should
unknown.
be doing fentanyl.
Well,
Be
no, you know
extra
what? I'm telling you,
careful.
I just saw an article this week that had said that the United States had finally turned the corner on the opioid crisis, and now it's going back. Like we're starting to have problems again. They thought
Yeah,
that,
people are so stressed by the prices and everything.
yeah. So we're just getting started. I mean, eclipse season to me, usually I like to take the wider view. It's like, there's a 2 week, say we normally have 2 eclipses, sometimes there's three, but normally say, and for this season, there's a lunar eclipse, then 2 weeks later, the solar eclipse. Even the 2 weeks outside of those is, the on ramp and the off ramp. So we're talking 6 weeks really of being in this eclipse energy. So I say get into, any kind of safe spaces of community, where you feel like you can be rejuvenated, where you feel like you can, be in healing. I mean, I think that that's with all this water energy. I feel like that's what is being called for the lunar eclipse. And then we will explore more of the solar eclipse when we get there, but that's, the earth energy. Might want to by that time be doing something practical with, even if it's the little things like organizing our spaces, and starting something new, because you had said when we started that the lunar eclipse is about a purging something, maybe some necessary something, or something that we just don't have a choice with, that is swept away, or that has to be dissolved, or be let go of, in order to sort of clear the ground for the new beginning of the solar eclipse that's coming in an earth sign. An earth sign is practical. It wants to build. It wants something tangible. It wants something purposeful. So that is potentially where we're headed toward, if we can get through the purging process.
Absolutely. Yes. This has been fantastic talking to you, Christina. And I want to let the podcast listeners know, I'm launching a moon class because this is so important to help us understanding your natal moon sign. And this is what this mini course is all about. You're going to get pre recorded videos for each moon sign through the houses as well as aspects. And then we're going to meet live twice on the 14th and the 28th of September. And so that I can work with people's charts and everything, and it's called The Proper Care and Feeding of Your Natal Moon. So you can check it out and see if you want to join me with this class. I'd love to have you. Yes, I would.
And Miss Celeste is our moon maven, I like to call her, because every day she does her moon memo on Instagram and she gives you the download on where the moon's at, what kind of aspects it's making, because it really gives us a sense of not just how we're feeling, but like how people around us may be feeling. So it helps us to sort of take the temperature, of our environment. So I love that. So thank you for offering that as like a free service every day that I can get my little piece of Miss Celeste Brooks, and definitely join her moon class. I 100% endorse it. I endorse any of her teachings. Also, get your eclipse course up there, your 30-minute workshop, because that is chock full of great information on eclipses. There's not enough really good information on eclipses from people who've really been observing it for a long time. I've also got workshops on my website too, but I really feel like that there's so much we can glean from eclipses before we get caught up in the undertow of these eclipses. Well, thank
Absolutely.
you, Celeste. We're gonna have to train in that dance together. What was it called? The cat dance?
It's Cat's Eye is a group, and they're dancing to Milkshake by Kellis, which was
Oh, okay. So that is
huge
milkshake.
hit like 20 years ago. So Kellis, I need to look up her chart because I bet you something Jupiter and Cancer is activating her chart because this song is rearing back into the zeitgeist.
Collective.
I wonder if it's going to start chopping the charts, and I think a lot of people are going to be doing this dance. I saw this. They were people from a kitchen. They were workers, chefs, and the people behind the scenes in a kitchen, and they did the milkshake. They did the dance, and they
Oh,
were waving around like produce and lettuces. So Virgo, it brought that energy
that's
into it.
hilarious.
And with Virgo season, taking the time to learn the precise steps so that you're all together and stepping on time. That's so Virgo. This commercial came out in Leo season, but now, which is the stars were doing it Cat's Eye, but now the people start doing it with the Virgo. I
Well,
think
we
we're
have a year to perfect it, right? For Chicago.
I gotta stop talking about it and start learning it. I've done a little bit of the tutorials, but I need to get it to all together.
All
So
right, you and me, we gotta make sure that we're on point for
yes,
for
absolutely.
UX.
Thank you so much, Christina. I love
All
talking with
right. Me
you. And
too. This has been, as you said, fabulous. I totally agree. And you're always welcome back, Miss Celeste. So check out Celeste Brooks at Astrology by Celeste, and check out me, Christina Caudill, at radiantastrology.com. And definitely give us a like and make sure you're following the Radiant Astrology podcast on YouTube or any of your favorite podcast apps. And I look forward to seeing you next time and wishing you a beautiful and magical lunar eclipse. Bye bye.